Bomber Fox at your service. I'm going to say up front that this is rather upsetting for me, and yet I should have seen this coming. Thanks to Trump and Sessions' no tolerance policy, we're separating children from their parents, having staff that mock crying children, and private facilities that drug children with psychotropic drugs. First, I'll provide some background information on this. First, I want to give some background information on this administration's views on immigration and really minorities in general. Then go into part two explaining what this administration is doing and what has been done about this so far. Let's start with the first excuse that the Republicans were giving. The Republicans allude to a bill that was signed in 2008 called the William Wilberforce Trafficking Victims Protections Reauthorization Act. 2008. It addresses the problem of children being brought in by human traffickers. However, this does not authorize ICE or authorities to break up families or separate children from their parents. Unaccompanied minors are usually either sent to the Office of Refugee Resettlement or easily reunited with family that are legal residents or citizens. This new issue appears to be part of something that Trump has wanted ever since he started campaigning, and the staff he has surrounded himself with, along with Breitbart commentators, are steering the president towards that goal. Before I go into further details of what has happened since the zero tolerance policy was put in place, I will go over the record of the people involved: Donald Trump, Jeff Sessions, Stephen Miller, John Kelly, and Kirstjen Nielsen. For the sake of brevity, I will keep each instance shorter. Donald Trump has a long history of not only discrimination, but also denigrating non-white people. First instance I could find had to do with Trump Estates, which he ran with his father. Trump was sued for housing discrimination as cases began building in 1963, but it was settled in 1971 in an agreement with the Justice Department. Trump took up the racist birther conspiracy and ran with it for years. Even after Obama showed his long form birth certificate, Trump still continued to deny it was valid. Not only did the little piggy push this so hard, but he claims credit for getting Obama to show his birth certificate and college records. When he went up against Hillary Clinton, Chito Benito tried to deny that his attacks on Obama's eligibility were part of his own campaign to discredit Obama. He turned around and blamed it all on Hillary, and he was just merely trying to put her conspiracy to rest. Of course, Fox News crowd lapped it up as if we were always at war with East Asia. He shows very thinly veiled disrespect towards blacks as excerpts from a Playboy interview in 1997 reveal that he did not dispute what was said about him in the book Trumped, where he's quoted stating, "Laziness is a trait in blacks." He also claimed that Trump said of his accountants, "Black guys counting my money. I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wearing yarmulkes every day," showing a pattern of anti-Semitism as well. Unfortunately, I could not find the specific issue, um, only news sites that talk about it. To add to the claim of anti-Semitism, at the Republican Jewish Coalition, he assumed that Jewish people would not support him because he does not want their money, but boy howdy, he sure wanted the money of gullible college kiddos, eh? Speaking of Trump University, he tried to pressure Gonzalo P. Curiel to recuse himself because he is Mexican, as if the race of the judge had anything to do with how he would rule. Regarding Muslims, he gave flippant answers, but you can narrow some things down. He did not say no when asked if he would require a registry of Muslims in America. He went on in another interview to say he would approve a database that would be run by good management, then hide this dog whistle behind mentioning immigration. For those who may not know why this is a bad idea, this would fall under stage 2 of genocide. In his plans to combat ISIS, he said not only should we torture the ISIS members just as badly as they torture their captives, but we should go after their families, wives, brothers, sisters, you name it. This establishes not only a flagrant disregard for the rules of war and U.S. law, but also a disregard for life. Consider this when we still have Gitmo, which has been detaining suspects without trial for indefinite amounts of time. He is also banking on the military to blindly follow his orders, as he thinks they will not refuse him. After the Charlottesville rally, Trump refused to condemn the extreme right and instead tried to equivocate them with the counter-protesters. Despite the killing came from one side and the other, the counter-protesters were defending their communities. These demonstrate a consistent pattern of hatred and bigotry by Donald Trump. Next is Stephen Miller, the architect of this whole policy. You know, the guy who was mentored by neo-Nazi Richard Spencer.
Some kind of assembly.
Before his adult career, he was a writer for op-eds of high school newspapers. First, we have an op-ed on the Samohi making Muslims out to be a monolith and likening anti-war protesters out to be just like the terrorists. He never quite liked having announcements given in 2 languages, despite the many Hispanic people in his school in Santa Monica, and he decides to turn his little rant into a bit of concern trolling. Not only is this guy such a tight ass that he throws a hissy fit when students give a janitor a present, but he seems to think Duke University is the only thing worth going to in Durham, North Carolina for. He was cycled around advising for various far-right candidates like Miss Cray Cray, Miss Michelle Bachmann, and others before he wound up advising Donald Trump. Who knew the piggish frat bro of a president would surround himself with insufferable racists, eh? Jeff Sessions is next on a list of pricks that polices this family separation. It's a bit hard to pin Sessions down in his early years regarding racism, as the LA Times published a more positive early years record for Sessions. In later years, however, there's a different story. He was tapped as a federal judge by Reagan in 1989, but that failed as he was accused of making racist remarks. Suppose the president must have changed his mind. When he became state attorney general in Alabama, he fought a court order to equally fund state public schools. He voted against the Violence Against Women Act, said some of Obama's nominees had ACLU DNA, as he hated the ACLU and called it a communist plot. I suppose later in life, if accounts from people who knew him are accurate, he took a more hardened conservative stance against LGBT rights, informing governments how to get around anti-discrimination laws. On the subject of John Kelly's views, instead of correcting Trump's on his incredibly dumb both sides argument regarding the Charlottesville rally, he doubled down on it and attempted to say that there were good people on both sides of the Civil War by hiding it among some dishonest attempt to be more nuanced when it's quite clear he was being an apologist. His rant on immigration comes with many qualifiers that appear to overly try to erase any racist implications that were embedded in it. He repeats many of the same tired old arguments that were made about the Irish and Italian immigrants years ago. And finally, Kirstjen Nielsen is basically the apologist face of the Trump administration. She lied about the nature of illegal entry, calling it a criminal act instead of a civil offense, and claimed that the zero-tolerance policy was not something totally new. She drew several protests at her home and at certain restaurants because, fortunately, many Americans won't take this shit lying down. I will make this video a 2-parter so it won't be overly long. Next part will be up soon. Thanks for watching.